Okay, so what if the ideas that really shape your life, your core beliefs, maybe even where our whole civilization is heading, what if they're not entirely yours? Like, what if you've just sort of picked them up, like a signal, from forces we don't usually see? It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring this pretty groundbreaking theory. It connects human consciousness, our minds, directly to the cosmos. It suggests we're way more interconnected and maybe more open to influence than we typically think. So our mission here in this deep dive is to sift through a whole stack of sources. We've got stuff that mixes, cutting edge physics with really ancient spiritual ideas. And we want to pull out the crucial bits, help you wrap your head around this frankly mind-bending concept, what it means for how you think, and, well, the bigger picture too, how civilizations might rise and fall. Get ready, because this perspective could really shift things.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how we're pulling together insights from fields that, seem worlds apart. We're talking science, psychology, spiritual traditions, trying to build a more cohesive picture, a picture of a universe that's maybe threaded with these powerful energies, maybe even unseen intelligences. And it's not just about what's out there. The core idea is how it connects directly to what's in here, inside our own minds.
Okay, let's start with that foundational idea from the sources. The human mind. It's not just locked inside our heads.
Exactly. The material we looked at proposes the mind is more like a receiver and transmitter,
Yeah.
like an antenna, basically,
Yeah.
tuning into these broader fields, thoughts, emotions, maybe even memory and spirit flowing through the universe.
Right, and that brings us to the electric universe theory, doesn't it?
It does. So instead of just gravity running the show, this model sees the cosmos more like a giant electrical circuit. It talks about these Birkeland currents. Picture enormous spiraling filaments of plasma,
Yeah.
superheated gas, basically, stretching between stars, galaxies, everywhere.
Okay.
And the really radical part, the paradigm shift these sources propose, is that these currents aren't just, passive power lines. They might actually carry complex patterns, maybe even information. Or like the electrical signals carrying thoughts in your brain.
Right. Information across cosmic distances.
That's the implication. It opens up possibilities way beyond standard physics. It suggests a living, dynamic cosmos,
Yeah.
not just empty space and gravity.
And this isn't just fringe stuff, is it? There are some respected thinkers who lean into this.
Well, Wallace Thornhill, who's a big name in the electric universe community, he basically says the universe is interconnected by these vast electric currents, and that they shape matter, sure, but maybe even influence consciousness.
Influence consciousness.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. And even Hannes Alvin, a Nobel Prize winner in physics, he emphasized how important plasma is. He called it the most complex stuff in the universe, maybe even the cradle of life. So we're looking at this fundamental, energetic medium that seems to structure reality in ways we're perhaps only beginning to grasp.
Which brings us back to the brain. If the universe is humming with electricity and information, and our minds are like antennas, then maybe the brain isn't generating all our thoughts. Rupert Sheldrake has that analogy, right?
Yeah, the radio analogy. He says the mind's more like a radio than a hard drive. Or like a TV set picking up broadcasts from a wider field rather than creating the show itself internally.
Okay, so if our minds are receivers, tuning forks for these cosmic frequencies, then the big question is, what broadcasts are we picking up? And who's sending them?
And that is exactly where these sources take a really profound, maybe even startling leap. They suggest these cosmic currents aren't just neutral energy pathways. They could be conduits. Conduits for what many traditions call non-material entities. Angels, demons, spiritual intelligences.
Seriously, riding these plasma currents.
The theory proposes they can actually move, observe, and crucially influence things directly through these currents, using them like highways or frequencies.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. And the sources say these influences have different agendas.
That's right. A kind of dual agenda playing out on these cosmic highways. On one side, you have beings described as angels or divine forces. They supposedly use these currents to send, truth, clarity, inspiration. Their influence is said to align with things like virtue, order, courage, self-sacrifice. Constructive forces, basically.
Okay. And the other side.
The other side, demons, malevolent spirits, whatever term you prefer,
Yeah.
they apparently use the exact same currents. But their goal is to implant thoughts, whisper doubts, inflame passions, spread despair, destructive stuff.
And they target specific minds.
The text suggests they exploit minds that are, let's say, untrained, faithless, or clouded by sin and pride, pushing subtly towards chaos and collapse.
But the really scary part, according to these sources, It doesn't feel like an external influence, does it?
No, and that's the critical danger highlighted. These suggestions don't arrive with a label saying from beyond. They come across as your own ideas,
But
impulses, emotions, sometimes even, noble sounding lies.
so to the person experiencing it, especially if they're not aware or trained, as the sources say, it just feels like them, their own thinking.
Exactly. That's the great danger described.
Mhm.
People can be manipulated without ever realizing it's happening.
Wow. That really makes you question things, doesn't it? Your own internal voice.
It absolutely does. It turns self-awareness into, like, a necessary defense. You have to ask, where did that thought really come from?
It reminds me of that Carl Jung quote.
People don't have ideas. Ideas have people.
Yeah. It captures that sense of being carried along by something larger.
And Fulton Sheen said something similar too, right? About thoughts coming from above or below.
He did. Paraphrasing, he basically said, not every idea in your head is yours. Some are from below, some from above. The real question is, which ones do you entertain? Which ones do you let in?
So it's like the human soul or the mind is the battleground. Precisely. As these Birkeland currents are theorized to flow through the earth, and maybe even through our brains, they become these invisible highways. And both good and evil influences, according to this model, are reaching into that personal battlefield.
Sheldrake again, right. The mind extending beyond the head.
Yeah, like a magnetic field. It supports this idea of us being permeable, connected to these larger fields, not isolated. It shifts the battle from purely internal to something with cosmic stakes.
Okay, so if individuals are influenced, what about the bigger picture, whole societies?
Well, that's the next logical step in the sources. They state it pretty starkly. Civilizations rise or fall based on which voices they heed.
Which leads to this concept of an invisible siege.
Right, an invisible siege. The idea is that these influencing forces, they don't necessarily need physical armies.
How do they attack them?
They came through ideas, that's the quote.
Yeah.
These influences are described as powers, ancient, cunning, patient. In some old texts, they're called principalities.
Principalities. Like not just individual spirits, but something bigger.
Exactly. In many traditions, principalities refers to these higher order spiritual forces that work on a collective level, influencing systems, cultures, nations. They operate through ideologies, societal trends, so they're seen as key players in this kind of invisible siege.
There are some pretty potent quotes about this, aren't there, St. Paul?
Yeah, Ephesians 6-point descent. We are not contending against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. It's quite direct.
And C.S. Lewis.
Lewis basically said, look, the spiritual realm isn't just a metaphor. It's not just psychology. It's real, and it gets involved in human affairs.
Gives you chills. And Baudelaire's famous line.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist, which speaks directly to the invisible nature of this siege, right? If you don't believe the enemy exists, you can't fight back.
So the strategy isn't outright conquest. It's different.
It's subversion. The sources are quite blunt. You don't need to conquer it. You just need to confuse it, break its memory, unravel its purpose, flood its borders, shame its defenders, let it rot from within while smiling. It's described as a long game, patient erosion.
This sounds familiar historically. Didn't Will Durant say something about civilizations destroying themselves from within?
He did. A great civilization is not conquered from without until it has destroyed itself from within. It fits this idea perfectly. Slow decay, then collapse.
And Lenin's quote about decades happening in weeks.
Right. There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. That sudden seeming collapse is often the result of that long, slow, undermining process.
There's also that idea attributed to Cicero, destroying borders, language, culture.
Yeah, attacking the core pillars of identity and cohesion.
Yeah.
It all points to these more subtle, internal forms of attack.
And the sources link this directly to specific ideas, specific whispers carried on these currents, leading to a long surrender.
Yes, they detail these specific messages, supposedly seeded via these Birkeland threads. Things like, tear down the borders, or compassion means surrender, or you owe the world your home.
And the claim is these ideas led nations to essentially unmake themselves, disguised as compassion.
That's the assertion in the material, yes. A long surrender disguised as compassion, where entire civilizations were persuaded to dismantle their own structures.
Now, the sources get quite specific here, particularly regarding mass migration. How do they frame that?
Okay, so The material we reviewed explicitly presents mass migration as one tool potentially used in this invisible siege.
Hmm.
It acknowledges some people were genuinely fleeing danger, but it also asserts others brought, quote, the momentum of collapse or the same chaos that drove them out.
Hmm.
And the core claim is that, from the perspective of these influencing forces, none of it was accidental.
And they connect this to other thinkers.
Yes, they cite figures like Auguste Comte, demographics is destiny. And Eric Zemmour, the replacement of populations is not an accident, it is a policy. Even Muammar Gaddafi's 2006 quote, there's no need to invade the West with armies. Just walk in.
Okay, and just to be absolutely clear for everyone listening, we are relaying the arguments and claims made in the source material here. We're not endorsing these specific political interpretations ourselves, just presenting what the sources say.
Absolutely. It's crucial to understand we're reporting on the content of these texts, which connect these societal events back to their core theory of unseen influence via cosmic currents.
So the fundamental problem, as these sources see it, is a kind of forgetting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forgetting that maybe not all thoughts originate inside your own head.
Yeah.
Forgetting that not every voice you hear, internally or externally, is necessarily yours or has your best interests at heart.
And this forgetting leads to vulnerability. The children of forgetting slept.
While the voices move through the fields, tuning the minds of rulers and rebels alike, until even the loyal became traitors in the name of mercy. That's the poetic, but chilling description.
Jung warned about this too, didn't he? Psychic epidemics.
He did. The greatest threat to our world is the psychic epidemic, the mass possession of people's minds by ideology. It's very relevant to this idea of unseen influences shaping collective thought.
And Plutarch's line about the mind, not a vessel, but a fire.
The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Yeah. It implies that an empty, passive mind is vulnerable. It needs to be active, discerning, kindled, to resist being simply filled by external forces.
Okay, so that's the problem laid out. Pretty intense stuff. What about the response? What can individuals do according to these sources?
Well, amidst all this, the sources definitely offer a path towards empowerment, not just despair. It's not presented as inevitable. The core response outlined is the need to actively train the mind.
How? Through what?
Through practices described as prayer, faith, and moral discipline. Essentially, strengthening the inner self, building resilience.
And developing a specific skill, discernment.
Exactly. The key skill is described as discernment of spirits, the ability to recognize which thoughts, which impulses, which ideas lead towards virtue and order, and which ones lead towards chaos and destruction.
It sounds like that requires deep self-awareness, looking inward.
Absolutely. It ties right back to Jung again.
Oh,
Who looks
gosh.
outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Resisting external manipulation starts with understanding your own internal landscape.
Questioning the origin of your thoughts, the intention behind them.
Precisely. It's about becoming an active gatekeeper of your own mind.
So the ultimate takeaway seems to be, this connection is real, the influence is real, but so is the power of the individual soul.
That's the profound insight, yeah. Just as plasma carries power, so too does the soul, and the battle for it is real. It's a call to recognize our place in this larger, energetic, and quite possibly intelligent cosmos, and to take responsibility for our own inner state.
Okay, let's try to quickly recap these really revolutionary ideas we've covered. The mind as a receiver, tuning into a universe alive with electric currents. Birkeland currents.
Right. And the, frankly, astonishing possibility that unseen intelligences might be using these currents to influence our thoughts.
And through our thoughts, shaping the destiny of entire civilizations.
Yeah, it connects the cosmic, the personal, and the societal in a really unique way.
So, big question for everyone listening. What does this all mean for you, thinking about this? It seems crucial for just navigating the world today, right? All the information, all the competing ideas hitting us constantly.
Definitely. It encourages a deeper level of discernment, asking, where is this idea really coming from? What's its underlying intention? Is it building up or tearing down?
So, maybe we can leave you with this thought to mull over. If the most important battles really are fought inside our minds, and if those minds are potentially influenced by these vast cosmic currents and the forces riding them, then what responsibility does each of us have to, actively guard our own inner gates? And by doing that, maybe even help shape the collective consciousness, the direction of our civilization.
It's a heavy question, but a vital one, according to these sources. It puts the power and the responsibility right back on the individual's awareness and choices.